talk with a few, and let me check where I am. Okay. With a few lines from one of the many, many poems about Zoia Kosmodemianskie. This is a recent poem written in 2001 by Vladimir Fetisov, a Nizhny Novgorod resident. No? Okay. Oh, wrong thing. Sorry. Okay. Pray for Zoia and Sasha, our poor motherland. Virgin Mary, Mother of God, save those who died for just deeds, for the land, forest, and fields, for youth and for friends. Even though they were Komsomol members, by choosing their own deaths, they were volunteers. Put a cross for them on their graves so that the Trinity will be strengthened. Submit an intention in a temple so that they will not live in shame. Pray for Zoia and Sasha. They will shield our motherland from harm. So, if you pray for Zoia and Sasha, Alexander, they will protect the Russian homeland. They will intercede as national patrons. But Zoia and her brother Alexander were Komsomol, Communist Youth League members, and not only not Orthodox, but proclaimed Stalinist. This poem demonstrates one of the dominant directions in which the cult of the Soviet Union's most famous female hero has developed in the post-Soviet period, as Russians struggling to define themselves after the collapse of the Soviet Union engage with their Soviet past. In this case, Voy recontextualizes Soviet heroes within the Russian Orthodox context. So, according to the official Soviet war narrative, on November 29, 1941, 18-year-old Zoia, a Moscow schoolgirl, was captured in the process of burning down a stable in Fetisov, a Nazi-occupied village in the Moscow region. Although cruelly tortured and marched dressed barefoot for hours in the snow, Zoia refused to divulge any information. Instead, the party experienced the nation, the Red Army, and Stalin just before being named. On Christmas Eve, Nazis stabbed her with bayonets and cut off the left breast. After the area's liberation several weeks later, Pravda correspondent Pyotr Vidov marked Zoya's fate. His article, Tanya, the name Zoya came under interrogation, contained all of the hagiographic elements necessary to ensure Zoya's secular canonization as the first female wartime hero of the Soviet Union, and to fill a central position in the pantheon of Soviet saints. Her image unified and inspired her compatriots. She was celebrated throughout the Soviet period, wartime to glasnost, commemorated through sculptures, paintings, and innumerable articles. Here some pioneer event commemoration of the bishop, one of her statues, commemorated sculptures, paintings, and innumerable articles and works of literature. Her narrative was such a powerful myth that existed outside of the politicized oracle detailed in the market. By myth, I mean narrative or plot, without any context, which is largely impossible to determine. For the most part, Zoya's image was a unified one. Kelly demonstrated through her work on public model that an analysis of an individual's mythical control that produced the hero in the cultural climate of the decades. Indeed, Zoya's image can be used as a lens through which to view the Soviet period as well as the post-Soviet transitional period. In this talk, I will analyze a small piece of the Zoia cult, asking how Zoia has helped define post-Soviet identity in a fractured Russia. First, some background about Zoya's role in the last years of the Soviet period. Towards the end of the glasnost period, after challenging almost all of the Soviet truths, journalists finally questioned the last two previously untouched topics, the cult of Lenin and the cult of World War II, both saintly in nature. The image of Zoia, a sacred martyr to some, an extension of totalitarian propaganda for others, splintered in what was left of the fractured Soviet collective memory, and she became a locus of charged debate. Challenges of her story, and by extension Soviet hagiography as a whole, demonstrated a need to probe even the most revered aspects of Soviet culture. Rumors and questions that had long circulated about Zoia and her podvig, or heroic feat, gained validity when they appeared in the press. Questions included: what was Zoia doing when she was killed? How could she have withstood the hours of torture? Was she mentally ill, schizophrenic, or masochistic? Who captured and executed her? Was she the girl executed in Fetisov? If not, then who was killed in Fetisov? Was anyone killed in Fetisov? Believers ardently defended Zoia's narrative by citing canonical text and reciting the dogma they had learned from pioneerhood. When a critical investigation failed to provide shaking facts, the debate died down, and museum officials and journalists soon began lamenting public ignorance of Zoia altogether. The cult of Zoia slipped into a kind of hibernation as Russia's weathered an unstable economy and changing values. Museum visits plummeted. The first 10 years after the collapse of the Soviet Union saw a wave of anxiety and an identity vacuum which many attempted to fill. During these first years, interest in religious cults grew dramatically. You may remember Fetisov's 1996 announcement of a contest for a new Russian idea. Communists continued to promote Soviet achievements, above all, those related to the Great Patriotic War, World War II. Conservative journalists often proclaimed that forgetting war heroes like Zoia was akin to executing them anew. But many, especially members of the younger generation, simply lost interest in Soviet heroes and have yet to resurrect many of them. Zoia is an exceptional case. Already by 1996, visits to our museums had increased, even if it remained a fraction of the Soviet total. Zoia's museum in Fetisov had received funds for both renovations and upkeep, in contrast to other museums which were repurposed or left to rot. By the end of the decade, it was clear that the Russian nation as a whole was more committed to remembering Zoia than most other war heroes. However, the second post-Soviet decade would see a wide variety of commemorations as disparate groups approached her image, promoting versions of their fractured past. Rather than reinstating Yeltsin's search for a new Russian idea in 2000, the 55th anniversary of victory, Putin turned to World War II and his unifying rhetoric aimed at reviving patriotism and forging a national identity. The renewed interest in the war led to a steady stream of Russian films, documentaries, and miniseries about the war, and included an 05 documentary which retold the Soviet narrative about Zoia and presented the findings of the 91 investigation. These films have led to an increase in patriotic pride and a renewed interest in the war. With this renewed interest, and with the documentary reinforcing the Soviet narrative of Zoia's point peak, the 06 desecration of Zoia's statue in the symbolic city of Volgograd, formerly Stalingrad, prompted public outcry and local government response. And I'd like to mention that although only 20 hours from Moscow by train, when this putsch was happening in Moscow, I really don't think Volgograd was on board. So, anyway, this is Volgograd. The vandalism of her statue showed that the Soviet past was still contested, even in hero cities, but the public outcry that resulted in a 2008 local government-financed resurrection of Zoia united veterans, communists, educators, and others as they restored and updated Zoia's image. Volgograd, of course, is defined by the war. Approaching the city, one sees the mammoth allegory of the Motherland calling her children to defend her. Like other cities destroyed in the war, Volgograd's streets bear the names of fallen heroes. What is Volgograd if not for its war hero identity? Viktor Fetisov's 2008 restoration of Zoia, a dramatic departure from Soviet depictions, is marked by features tied to the Soviet narrative and related mythology. The fabric of Zoia's shift is wrinkled, and her bunched-up jacket alludes to her sacrifice by emphasizing her left breast, the one cut off after her death. Like previous depictions, the folds of fabric clothe a strong body. Her bound hands are clenched in fist. She's determined. Like statues in Fetisov, the figure's bare feet recall the hours she spent marching nearly naked and barefoot in the snow on her last night. Fetisov constructed his 3-meter statue out of white marble, a more permanent substance than the plaster of the original, symbolizing the late Soviet theme of Zoia's eternal youth. The white stone also alludes to the figure's innocence, a theme from 1942 on. As in other monuments, one can read Zoia's image as a representation of the Russian land itself and the women who experienced the war. Desecrated during the occupation, she remains the embodiment of purity, strength, and resilience. In contrast to the Motherland allegory, the lack of an elevated podium eliminates the distance between the viewer and the statue and removes her from mythology, grounds her to the earth, resituating her in the present, as a concrete example, as one of those who gave her life for her nation. The statue, dedicated to, quote, young, unconquerable patriots, unquote, demonstrates a view of heroism inherited from the Soviet communist path. Zoia is strong, determined, pure, self-sacrificing, and patriotic. This patriotism, this love for her country, is what makes her unconquerable. The general inscription references the unified collective of young people who put their nation before their individual selves in a way that passers-by, many attending the neighboring high school, might ponder. Through the inscription, the statue sends a message of strength and unity, but specifically through patriotism. A movement coming out of, but not limited to, Tambov has taken the metaphorical resurrection of Zoia a step further. With the resurgence of the Orthodox Church, she is also being brought into the company of saints. At a 2008 conference marking what would have been Zoia's 85th birthday, a Tambov State professor proposed the canonization of Zoia as a great martyr in the Orthodox Church, and a group of Tambov residents sent a formal request to church officials. Since then, the church has repeatedly defended its refusal to canonize Zoia because she was, quote, a Komsomol member and a Stalinist, end quote, to supporters who are likely unfamiliar with Stalinist versions of her story or who explain away controversial aspects of her biography. While the online discussion that follows the article, Kosmodemianskie must become Saint Zoia, shows that a significant population of Russians feel that ecclesiastical canonization is unnecessary or inappropriate, grassroots campaigns to situate Zoia within an Orthodox context have been developing in Tambov for at least a decade. And just on the side, the Savoy is not related to this. This movement in Tambov, Nizhny Novgorod, is quite a way away. His poem, at least in his view, was divinely inspired while he was vacationing on the Black Sea. The roots of Zoia's canonization movement extend much further into the past than the Volgograd resurrection campaign and are specifically East Slavic. Nina Tumarkin has shown how the makers of Soviet propaganda relied upon Orthodox models for the cult of Lenin and later Stalin, demonstrating the compatibility of Orthodox forms with communist meaning. The veneration of saints, ancestors, and relics never died out under Soviet rule. Podvig itself is originally an Orthodox concept. Elena Kala notes that the concept of podvig, connoting an exploit, a feat, or the virtuousness of a person is organically linked with the concept of vita. Vita is about the exploits of a saint. The photograph that accompanied, I don't have it here, you saw it earlier. The photograph that accompanied Lita's Pravda article showed a mutilated corpse with a serene, uncorrupted face, which did not go unnoticed by a people owning a long tradition of venerating uncorrupted corpses as saints. So, Lita's hagiographic account of Zoia's podvig and the accompanying photograph were enough to prompt Russians revising their past through an Orthodox prism to find saintliness in Zoia. And I'm sorry, this I should have shown you earlier. These are the statues in Fetisov, were barefoot, like the one that I had shown you in Volgograd. I did have it. Okay, that's the image I'm talking about. There you go. Moreover, in addition to focusing on Zoia's podvig, some of the most ardent proponents of the movement to canonize Zoia point to her Orthodox roots, just as the Soviets elevated citizens based on their class backgrounds. Bolsheviks executed Zoia's paternal grandfather for being a priest in 1918. He was canonized as saint in 2000. Numerous advocates have reverted to mysticism. According to a local rumor, Zoia's grandfather had had an omen of his grandchildren's martyrdom in a vision of two angels descending to the earth. While the resurrection of Zoia's image in Volgograd strengthens the ties between Zoia and her Soviet heritage, the emphasis on Zoia's ancestry and the push to canonize her as an Orthodox saint reconnects the greatest Soviet martyr to her Orthodox and Tsarist past. The focus on her family name links Zoia to two foundational early Christian martyrs, Kosmos and Demian, and gives evidence of a desire to recast the Soviet woman as the most recent iteration of a millennium-long martyr tradition. By identifying origins of Zoia's martyrdom in the deep Christian past, the Tambov group presents evidence that both boosts its legitimacy and potentially undermines communist groups which cast Zoia as primarily a Soviet patriot. In addition to drafting narrative demands for canonization in letters, articles, and on the internet, proponents of canonization have begun visually connecting Zoia to the Orthodox tradition, creating neo-hagiographic depictions. Here you can see an infantized version of Zoia as an Orthodox martyr. It reads, Martyr Zoia Kosmodemianskaya. Okay. For 30,000 rubles, you can order a copy of this edition of Zoia from a Petersburg artist. In addition to new visual representations of Zoia as an Orthodox martyr, some of her supporters have been situating her Stalinist form within the context of Orthodoxy. Is no one amused by this? I've not presented this yet without like silence. I'm sorry. I don't know. Maybe I'm irreverent, but anyways. And the fact that you can order it. I mean, they're the capitalist. Anyways, market economy. Okay, so some of her supporters have been resituating her Stalinist form within the context of Orthodoxy. For instance, opposite the title page of the most recent book-length publication dedicated to Zoia, Zoia, You Remain Alive Among the People, a book about Zoia Kosmodemianskaya, the editors included a photograph of Manizer's famous statue, this one erected in Tambov in 1947 in front of an Orthodox church. The barrel of her rifle stands parallel to the crosses atop the cupolas. The photographer captured the image so that the statue of Zoia appears to look back towards the church. The church, Zoia, and the trees between them all form one composite picture so that she appears to be an extension of the church. By placing the church behind the statue, the authors visually show the role of the Orthodox Church in Zoia's formation, and, as this is a Stalin-era statue, assert its role in the war. The photo sends a message that although obscure, the church was always present and responsible for deeds such as Zoia's. These visual tactics seem appropriate considering the extent to which Orthodoxy is entrenched in visual symbolism. Elliot Borenstein explains in the first years after the collapse, Russians searching for an authentically Russian identity turned to folk heroes and to Romanovs. But after the war ceased to be contested, even those who disavowed communism could also appropriate the war myth and the Soviet heroes of their youth into their Russian historical narratives. In Zoia's neo-iconography and text, Stalin and the communist baggage are absent or explained away. Her cult reveals a desire to wholly embrace the war in spite of the knowledge revealed during Glasnost, by cleansing the narrative of Stalinism and resituating it within an Orthodox context, as Lisa Wood does in his poem. So one may employ the myth in the formation of a truly Russian identity. Judith Deutsch-Kornblatt has shown that early into the post-Soviet period, many Russians began using Orthodoxy to define themselves. The recently opened Zoia Kosmodemianskaya childhood room, thank you, in the Osino-Gai City Museum situates the hero in a specific Russian space by draping the room in Russian folk material culture. War heroes have proven useful in the construction of post-Soviet identity once their images are framed with the appropriate context. So we have a Soviet bust, much like the one that was destroyed in, these were all over, but destroyed in Volgograd. We have a tree. I don't have time to talk about Zoia and trees. We have the church in the background. This is the room. This is a recreation of the room where she grew up. Here we go, in the room. Okay. And so in Tambov, Manizer's Stalin-era Zoia remains elevated above her compatriots on her pedestal. How she used to be presented, we can see on the left. Now we see on the right. Yet today, Zoia marches in sync with the Orthodox Church. The recent appropriation of Zoia's image by various groups shows how post-Soviet Russians mined the narratives that had formed the Soviet collective memory. The resurrection of collective interest in Zoia complements the nationalist reappropriation of World War II under Putin. Simultaneously, under Putin's presidency, Russia has seen the most canonization since the reign of Ivan IV. Zoia unifies disparate groups, appealing to those who identify with Soviet myths and those who look to the deeper past for meaning. Perhaps Zoia will maintain a prominent position in Russia's pantheon of heroes long after the collapse of the Soviet Union, precisely because her image and narrative are both so deeply rooted in overlapping layers of Russian culture that she is capable of transcending her Soviet origins, and because she is simultaneously tied to the Soviet Union's most celebrated victory. In his analysis on Soviet cults, Borenstein notes that rather than being a distortion of truly Russian values, new religious movements are, if anything, a distillation of the number of important trends in contemporary Russian culture. Both the cults and the former USSR and their detractors provide a vivid snapshot of the Russian postmortem condition. The last decade has shown that for some, Zoia and the generation she represents have redeemed the crimes of high Stalinism, the regime that produced her, showing that at least one of the most celebrated heroes of Stalin's time is worthy of veneration. To answer the question of my title, it seems clear that for most, Zoia is both a patriot and a saint because she suffered and died for her nation. Her various advocates celebrate her for her selfless love for Russia. Her image acts as the antithesis of the figure of Sergei Oshukhin and identifies as the new Russian woman, a projection of unfamiliar individualistic tendencies based on interviews he conducted in the late 1990s. Her appeal to disparate groups during the last decade strongly suggests that Zoia's image might prove to be foundational in the formation of a post-Soviet identity in Russia. As the internet continues to foster communities and connect diverse and geographically dispersed people through forums and blogs, the various representations of her image will likely continue to converge and evolve into an idealization of